Missed the sign language. At this time, I would like to ask everyone if they could please make sure their cell phones are put on silent. The time is now 7 p.m., so I'd like to call to order the regular City Council meeting of Tuesday, December 6th, 2022. And we're going to start out this evening with the invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. And our invocation this evening will be given by Mr. Dan Zander. If everyone would please rise.
Most gracious God, we thank you for this day. Thank you for this time. We come to you and we just pray for our city council. Let this go smooth this evening and let this be a good one tonight. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Moving on to item 1, if we could please have roll call.
Councilmember Baker?
Here.
Councilmember Curley?
Here.
Councilmember DeMonico?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Lucido?
Here. The second item on the agenda is the approval of agenda. At this time, does council have any changes they would like to make?
Madam Mayor Pro Tem, I'd like to add, I'd motion that we add under unfinished business, the first item, the military museum lease.
So we'll add item 1A as military museum lease under unfinished business.
Just for clarity, is that for discussion or is that for motion and support?
Discussion and possible motion.
Okay, because one of my concerns was that they just had a meeting with administration today, and that was part of our direction at the last meeting, was that they come together with administration, have a discussion, and so we could be informed on how we move forward. And being that that discussion happened today, just a few hours before our meeting, I would feel more comfortable with tabling it. And also, we have one of our members not present.
Well, I think at this time, because we did make a motion to actually have it on the agenda, that me personally, I would like to actually have it on the agenda because that was our motion on this, I think it was the 8th of November.
Even with no proposed agreement?
Yes.
Well, when we get a second.
I'm going to second that because
If there is.
there will be a loud discussion and suggestions and deletions on the document that we have tonight anyway, so I would support that discussion and possible motion. I'll turn down my hearing aid.
So we have motion and support. Please call the roll.
Councilmember DeMonico?
Yes.
Councilmember Curley?
Yes?
Mayor Pro Tem Lucido?
Yes.
Councilmember Baker?
No.
Moving on to item 3, it's hearing of the public. Anyone that wishes to be heard will get 3 minutes. If you could just come up to the podium, please.
Good evening.
I'm sorry, if you could just state your name also for the record.
Thank you. My name is Andre Otis. Good evening, everybody. My name is Andre Otis again. I'm here to represent new State Rep-elect Kimberly Edwards of District 12. So I'm just here to meet you all, catch you all on the business, and start being a steward of you all and start building a relationship. So that's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Creech?
Mayor Pro Tem and Council, I've been here a few times, and I'll probably be back a few more times. But I'm on here that says, the property rights for the electric company and easements. And the deeper I get into this, the worse it gets. Because no one can legally, I guess apparently, no one could legally tell me that they have an easement in Eastpointe. I mean, it's pretty simple. I mean, I've went to the county. I've come to the city. There's no paperwork that I know of, and especially the county. I went to Register of Deeds. There, you come back and you tell the people, you can't do this, you can't do that, you have to do this, you own that, we own this. But The basic one is, I love it. And I mean, everybody said, where'd you get it? And it says legal recording of easement. It says when an easement is given by a property owner, an easement is recorded or filed in the county records office. That's where I started. It's not there. It's simple as that. There's no easement there. There's no side easements. If the side easements along your fence were given by the city, that's one thing, but they're not in there. Somewhere along the line, this city has either neglected to do its duty or paperwork hasn't got done. I've been at this now a little over 5 weeks, and some of the people do know it. I've been everywhere. I've talked to lawyers. I've done this. I've done that. I've jumped through hoops and loops and screens and everything. All I want to do, and as simple as that, show me in writing. It says that we are responsible for our property. I want to be as responsible as I can be. But a typical example, look out in your parking lot right there of the overgrowth on the power lines. And I happen to be talking to somebody. They can only work within 2 foot of it. So is the power lines going to be responsible for cleaning up the rest of it? Apparently not. I've watched my street on both sides in the last couple of big storms and the rest of stuff between waving back and forth. I've watched two posts catch on fire because of the lines. The maintenance is not there, people. And I mean, if you live in this city, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. I've taken the administration on trips and rides and showed it's terrible. I want this city cleaned up, and the only way we can get it cleaned up, and I know we have some new ordinances coming up, don't punish the people. Take on the people that need to be punished. Whoever it is, and the same thing about it. Get this city straightened back up, which I'm trying. I'm trying everything I can do. But if the city can't hold these utilities.
Mr. Kraish, your time is up, but
Thank
you'll have
you.
3 minutes at the end of the meeting. Good evening.
Good evening. Uh-oh. Looks like I'm tearing things up already. Okay, this is not, oh, something else. Okay, I'm sorry. Mary Hall Rayford, Eastpointe. Hope everyone has had a good holiday. Glad to see all of you. And I would hope that soon, and very soon, that we would all take a look deep within and see what we can all do to make this city a better place. It's not one person or one group. If this is a family town, it needs to be just that, a family where we're all working together to make this a better place for everyone. I don't know what else I can say. I've said this before repeatedly. We just need to act more like human beings that can respect one another and respect the fact that we're not always going to agree, and learn how to agree or disagree agreeably. So I'm looking forward to a very short meeting. And have a good evening.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard at this time? Ms. Moragian?
Good evening, Karen Moragian, Eastpointe resident. I'm going to step up so you can hear this. You may not hear it through the microphone.
Okay.
I should not have to put up with horrible conduct like this from a tenant. For years, this tenant has harassed me, threatened me, destroyed my property, has kept me up, woke me up. This is ridiculous. This tenant has clearly created a hazardous condition that puts the people's safety in harm's way. The city certainly has a right to evict this tenant under those conditions. I have wrote twice to the city. Nothing has been done. This isn't about wait and see. This is a matter that needs to be taken seriously. This tenant is clearly out of control. She already has criminal charges against her. She is engaged in far too much criminal conduct against me and my property for the last 3 years. Her brother made a threat against my life over the summer. More criminal behavior. 2 weeks ago, boyfriend, ex-boyfriend, whatever he is, more criminal behavior. Took a baseball bat to her car. No homeowner should have to put up with this behavior. The city came up with the nuisance tenant ordinance to hold these landlords accountable that were saying, I'm not responsible for my tenant's behavior. If anything happens to me, and I have asked the city to move forward with this eviction, and nothing's being done. I didn't even get a response when I sent an email on November 18th. You do realize if anything happens to me, what a public relations nightmare that is for the city. You've known all along and you've failed to act. There's other safety concerns going on here in the city. We all got our letters over the weekend about the lead in the water, and there's missing information in those letters. I talked to the state health department yesterday about the results with my water. The city did not put anywhere in the letter that once we go through those 2 replacement cartridges, the city has to continue to provide us with the replacement cartridges until the city is no longer in, what the city is now is an action level exceedance community. So until the city's not
Ms.
at that
Braden, your time
point-
is up. I'll give you 3 minutes at the end
I'll
of the meeting.
finish in the next 3 minutes.
Does anyone else wish to be heard at this time? Seeing no one else, wait, I'm sorry. We have one email that was sent to us, so the city manager is going to read.
Thank you. This is from Carl and Marcia McDaniels. Greetings. I'm writing this to petition you to renew the lease of the Michigan Military Technical and Historical Society Museum. It is a small museum but has an important mission that needs to be continued. This museum is not the usual museum containing military-related artifacts used in times of conflict. Its primary purpose is to preserve a history of the state of Michigan and its people in supporting the conflicts involving them from 1900 to the present. Particular emphasis is placed on the home front history of the contributions of Michigan citizens and industry during those conflicts. The museum has supported many local programs in the pursuit of its mission and goals. It should be allowed to continue. Please read this correspondence into the record concerning the vote.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard? Okay, then I will close the hearing of the public and move on to item 4, which is approval of the minutes.
Madam Mayor, I would move to receive and file the regular minutes of November 1st, 2022.
Support that.
Motion and support, please call the roll.
Councilmember Curley.
Yes.
Councilmember DeMonico.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Lucido.
Yes.
Councilmember Baker.
Yes.
And Madam Mayor, I would move to receive and file the regular minutes of November 15th, 2022.
I'll second that.
Motion and support, please call the roll.
Councilmember Curley.
Yes.
Councilmember DeMonico.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Lucido.
Yes.
Councilmember Baker.
Yes.
And we have no scheduled hearings, so we'll move on to item 6, which is unfinished business. And we're starting with item 1A, which is the Military Museum lease. And if we could maybe start with Councilman DeMonico.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem Lucido. Wanted to get this on the agenda because 2 meetings ago, we asked city administration to meet with the museum. They have, and there are some minor changes that were agreed to, and a couple other notes. But now I think we've, my opinion is we've done everything that's been asked of folks at the table here, and I think we should move forward with a lease here, and I guess I can make a proposed motion also, if that's all right.
Yeah, before you move on, Councilman DeMonico, there was a couple of things. So Mr. Albright did forward us a lease agreement today, but then he also had a couple of side notes that he put in. So in those side notes, there was item 3 that says the tenant shall use premises as a military museum. Well, that was already added in there. So it's, paragraph 4 requires additional attention. And I think that changing this to what he suggested, taking out the words general and major though, and just having maintenance and repairs under 5K specifically defined. And also adding in there that for part of 4, that if there's any dispute, that it goes to city council. And that any future maintenance of over 5K repairs, that they get brought to city administration's attention in advance so they can financially prepare for them.
Madam Mayor, if I might add that the city attorney also suggests, and let me read what he is suggesting. The property contains asbestos, and said material shall not be disturbed. In the event the tenant does cause an issue that creates the necessity to remove said material, the cost shall be borne solely by the tenant. If any of you have had experiences with asbestos, we remodeled our church about 8 years ago at a cost of a little over $1 million, and they were almost ready to put up the ribbon to cut, and one of the repair people, contractors, disturbed the asbestos, and we ended up spending an extra $500,000 because they disturbed it. So I think it would not hurt to have that in the contract just in case something happens to the asbestos and it's disturbed, and then it's going to be a significant amount to repair. And Madam Mayor said about an event of a dispute, he said arising between the tenant and the landlord's administrator of what is or is not maintenance. The issue shall be brought before the city council for resolution.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that should go in there also.
I do have some questions that I know some of which I want to address to our city attorney. One of which is that are we legally able to use taxpayer dollars to fund this? Because this is for a private entity to occupy that museum. Are we legally allowed to do that?
It's actually for, it's a charitable purpose. The city still owns the building, and so this is not going for the operation of the actual museum itself. That's borne on the tenants. This is for the maintenance of the building itself and the property itself, which the city retains title to.
Okay, so that being said, do you feel that this, with these proposed changes, that this is in the city's best interest? Because we have an obligation to be good stewards of city resources. So you, as having been involved and having experience with some rental agreements and things of that nature, do you feel that this is in the city's best interest to move forward with this agreement with the proposed changes?
Thank you, Councilman Baker. I can tell you that this lease as proposed would stand up in court as far as being enforceable with regard to whether this is in the city's best interest. You are part of the legislative body, and that decision-making is reserved for you as elected officials.
Okay, and so I would address the rest of council because we also gave direction to our finance director to provide us a list of costs and things associated with this, with the upkeep at the museum. Now, I know in the presentation at our last meeting, when there was a presentation about the museum, it was stated that it was averaged about $2,000 per year, but we got different figures from our finance department. So with the numbers that our finance director has given us, do you members of council feel that this is still within the city's best interest? Because his numbers are quite substantially larger than an average of $2,000 a year. Even when you look at the replacements of the HVACs and certain other things, do you guys feel that this is in the city's best financial interest to move forward like this? especially with some of our discussions at budget times and places where we were talking about trying to be financially responsible, do you guys feel that this is what we should do with the city, with the taxpayer dollars?
Councilman Curley.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll comment to that. Yes. First of all, answer your question, Director. Yes, I think it's well worth what we're doing. You know, this whole thing, that the owners of the building want a 25-year lease. Why do they want a 25-year lease, in case you all don't remember? It's a military museum, and there's a lot of military equipment that they cannot get because of the current 3-year contract that they have. The military in Washington, D.C. said, we love your place, we've been there, people talk about it, but we want some stability in your contract of maybe 25 years. And if you can get that, then we're talking about a tank that was in World War II that they can put out in front of the building. I don't think there's any question. This council has always supported the military museum. And let me give you an example. If this didn't come before us for a 25-year contract and we kept what we got, the $1 a year for 3 years, on that chart that our city attorney, city finance director gave us, there's some costs involved. But we wouldn't have said a word, nothing. And after that 3 years are over, we would renew it for another 3 years. So now you're 6 years into that suggested document that the city finance director gave us. So asking for 25 years it's stability, and I happen to think there's not a military museum around the county, maybe Tri-County, that will equal what our military museum is. So I think the changes that the mayor suggested and I suggested is not going to hurt the intent of the contract whatsoever. Taking out the words general and major, and then putting something in there about the asbestos. The intent of the contract still stands, and everything we do costs money, you know. And but we have the decision when those major repairs. Here I use the word major. When things have to be repaired, the parking lot would be our decision when it would be replaced, not the folks that run the museum. And the roof, maybe there's all kinds of types of roofs that we could put in there that would last 2 or 3 times longer than what they have on there now. So it's a long thing to answer your question, Councilman, but yeah, I'm ready to do it.
Okay, well, I wouldn't agree with necessarily saying that we wouldn't have questioned anything, because those questions had already surfaced prior to the meeting today. There's one of the last questions that I have is, has anyone from council had conversation with members of the military museum since the presentation at the meeting where they did the presentation? And I'm just curious, has anyone had conversation with those members of the military museum specifically regarding this lease agreement?
Yeah, Councilman Baker, I can answer that. I did have a conversation with someone from the military museum today prior to this meeting, because I wanted to make sure I had the opportunity to speak with administration and with the military museum in regards to the meeting that they had, and I wanted to make sure I had both sides before coming to the meeting to make sure I was well informed.
Okay, well, the reason why I asked that, because I was told that it was already stated that they had 3 votes prior to this meeting. And that, to me, seems to violate an open meetings, our rules for open meetings act. I don't know how you know that you have 3 votes prior to. When this item was tabled for future discussion, we still had information and conversation that had to take place. So that, to me, well, that leads me to ask our city attorney, how do we move forward with that?
Hold on, I'd like to address that. I think Councilman Baker, first of all.
Well, a point of order, I addressed the question to the city attorney.
Well, the museum people can't break Open Meetings Act, it's us.
Oh, well,
Point of order.
Yeah.
Okay.
I addressed the
Stop,
question.
Mr. Baker. I'm going to give Councilman DeMonico a chance to respond quickly, and then Mr. Albright.
Yeah, I have not, the three of us have not met, is your question, together. And yes, I have talked to the museum. I pointed out that we were $1,000 off per year on the HVAC, because only when you search Military Museum in our records, only one of the two payments comes up in the bills. So they were $1,000 off, so they said $2,000 a year. It's $3,000 a year. Then we have the $3,000 in miscellaneous repairs in Mr. Blum's memo that is the difference between 3 and 6. So I guess that's a very quick question to your.
Thank you,
or
Councilman
answer to your two
DeMonico.
questions.
Mr. Albright.
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem. Our office would have to investigate whether a violation of the Open Meetings Act occurred, and that would include the interviewing of people who may or may not have been part of that discussion, and then we would have to report back to the council with our findings.
Okay, because, I mean, I think some of that can be cleared up with members that are currently present in our meeting right now. My question, I asked specifically, had anyone had conversation? I didn't say that the members of the Military Museum violated OMA. They're not bound by it. We are. And so for them to say, or if they, from what I was told, for them to say or to know that they had 3 votes already, I question that. And our job is to avoid the appearance of impropriety. Our job is to be transparent up here and not to have conversations about decisions that still have yet to be made. And to guarantee that someone has 3 votes, that's not right.
Mr. Baker, I have one question for Mr. Albright. So if this is Mr. Baker's concern after we make this vote this evening, what would be his next steps if he does have that concern? He would file a complaint with your office?
File a complaint with our office. There's also the Ethics Board that hears violations of the city's Code of Ethics. So those would be 2 possibilities.
All right, thank you. Mr. Curley.
Yeah, I just feel like, in all due respect, Councilman, I feel like I've just been hit in the butt with a baseball bat of your accusations. Explain to me, Mr. City Attorney, Opens Meeting Act, if I went down to Charlie Swartz, who wants to open up a flower shop, and talk to him about what he's going to do with his flower shop. Am I breaking a law?
No, there has to be a quorum, and there has to be deliberation.
Thank you.
Quorum of,
Thank you.
Of the various public body.
Thank you.
That's not the
So
same
if
example. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
How did they know there were 3 votes? I think more than one time, the majority of this council said, hey, this is a great thing for our community at this table. And I did remark to them we were at a fundraiser, I forgot what it was, at the museum. And I said, I love this place. I just love this place. I hope it's here well behind my death, which, is she here? Said it was going to be next week. So that's answering your question. If you know what? So you can follow through, but you better find out what a violation of the Open Meeting Act is first. If an individual council member goes to somebody and say, hey, this is going to be a great place, I wish you all the luck in the world, is that breaking it? Well, it's not, because the city attorney just...
Well, the example that you gave was not the example of what I stated. It's different. But I understand exactly how you're changing it at the table. Because for somebody, it's one thing, if somebody's coming in and talking about a business idea, that's one thing. This was something that was tabled to go to, and direction was given to our administration, the city attorney, to have conversation, to come up with a proposed agreement. And so once it got tabled and we were waiting for information, feedback from our city attorney, from city administration, for them to know prior to that there were 3 votes already supporting, I know exactly what was said at this table. I know what you're alluding to, and I know how that looks based on how you said it. But if this was tabled to come back to this table for future discussion, I feel like that was inappropriate.
Well, let me
And
ask,
so I will be willing to look forward, I will be willing to look further into it. But there are people in this room right now, our city manager, were you told that there were 3 votes by one of the members from the military museum?
what would have happened, Councilman, if,
I'm part,
Councilman
point of order,
Curley,
point of order.
Sorry. Let Ms. Walton respond really quick to Mr. Baker's question.
Yes, I was told that.
Go ahead, Mr. Curley.
you know, this is my last statement on this, and I don't know what you need from me, my passport or my driver's license to find out if I'm going. What would have happened if they said, what would have happened if they said, I think we have 3 votes. I think we have 3 votes. So if that word think would have been in there, boom, you wouldn't be complaining.
You don't know what, if I would or if I wouldn't.
I don't know if you would or not. You're complaining.
So it's probably
you're
better that
complaining
you
now.
don't, it's probably better that you don't tell me what I would and wouldn't do.
You're complaining
That would,
now.
that would
Point of
probably
order.
be better.
I'm sorry, Councilman DeMonico, did you have something?
Oh, no, I was just,
I thought
I
you-
was gonna make a point of order in a second, I thought maybe.
Well,
So really quick, I think Councilman DeMonico wanted to propose.
I did have another question I wanted to ask our finance director. Was he present for that same comment?
Can we, I'm sorry, really quick, can we just, if let's just find out if we're going to have a motion. If we have a motion with support, then we
So
can
we're
move
ending
forward.
discussion,
Then we
even
can
though it
move
was open
forward-
for discussion?
Then we can move forward with more questions after we have the motion on the floor.
So just so I'm clear, we had discussion, we opened it for discussion, now we're stopping it to vote because
Well,
I have
I mean-
more questions?
I think we can even see if there's going to be a motion to see if the discussion's even necessary.
That seems really unorthodox. But-
No.
No.
Madam Mayor?
I have a right to ask those
Point-
questions.
Point of-
Madam Mayor,
No,
let me
a point of order. Is there a motion?
No, I have a point of order. I want to say something.
Yes.
Typically, at least back in the day, we always made the motion first, and then there was discussion. Not necessarily discussion first and then a motion. So either way is correct.
And
We can make a motion, and what you would say, is there any discussion on the motion?
Thank you, Councilman Curley. Yes, no, I agree. We did kind of get off track there a little bit. And the only reason why I'm asking this is I don't even know if we're going to get a motion tonight. So if we're not going to get a motion, then I feel like we don't need to continue having the conversation. And if you feel like you need to at that time, I'll give you an opportunity to speak. But let's just find out if we're even going to have.
All right, noted. My discussion and my questions are cut short. I'm noted.
Well, okay. All right, well, I don't know, there were some comments about section 4 here, I was going to say. Put
So,
a motion on the floor with section 4 and the 3 items in Mr. Albright's memo
yeah,
with the lease, and then have Mr. Baker ask his question.
okay. So that's the motion?
No, I'm saying, for section 4, there were a couple
Oh, yes.
modifications.
My thing was,
You
is.
could make the motion.
Oh, okay, yeah, so I will make the motion. I'll move forward with motioning to approve the lease agreement that Mr. Albright forwarded us today for 25 years for $1 a year, adding his recommendations only, and also adding Mr. Blum's recommendations, with the exception of the property taxes is the sole responsibility of the tenant, removing that, and also removing the words general and major out of the wording of the proposed adjustments.
So can I just clarify the motion? So we're saying, so we've got the lease document,
Mm-hmm.
and then one change was for section 3, should say instead, tenant shall use the premises as a military historical museum. The premises shall not be used for residential purposes or any other use unless agreed to by landlord and tenant in writing.
Yep.
That's section 3. Section 6, paragraph 6, should say instead, tenant understands landlord will also use the premises for election purposes, and tennis courts will be available to the Eastpointe schools tennis teams and the Recreation Authority of Roseville and Eastpointe, also known as RARE.
Yep.
And then the paragraph 13 should read instead, access to premises, landlord shall have the right to enter the premises at all reasonable hours, provided that the entry does not interfere with the operation and conduct of tenant's business. Access by individual members of city council shall only be permitted by a majority vote of the city council and subject to a 48-hour advance written notice requirement to the tenant.
Yes.
And then, how would section,
Paragraph 4 would read that tenant agrees to perform maintenance and repairs under $5,000, which will need to be specifically for under $5,000. Tenant requests that the city is responsible for maintenance and repairs of $5,000 or more. In addition, city administration is, in the tenant shall notify the landlord of any perceived future maintenance of over $5,000. The landlord can prepare plans to address the issues. Maintenance shall be done at the landlord's discretion for timing and manner to resolve. In the event of a dispute arises between tenant and landlord, administration of what is or not repairs of over $5,000, the issue shall be brought before city council for resolution.
Did the secretary get all that?
I tried to read it really slow.
Is that, I'll look at it on the video.
Okay, oh, that, yeah, we're taping. Okay.
I couldn't write
second that.
We have a motion and support, so now we can open it back up for discussion. I'm sorry about that, Mr. Baker. We'll start with you.
Okay, so I was asking the finance director, did you hear at your meeting that you had a guaranteed 3 votes already prior to this meeting tonight?
Yes, sir.
Assistant City Manager Holman, did you hear at your meeting today, prior to where we are right now, that you had an affirmative, that you had a guaranteed 3, that they had a guaranteed 3 votes for this lease agreement?
Yes.
City Attorney Albright, did you hear the same?
I don't recall hearing the word guaranteed, but I did hear 3 votes.
Guaranteed is my word, but did you hear that they had 3 votes already?
Yes.
Thank you.
And I would like to respond really quick to Mr. Baker. I have had discussions previous to our last meeting when this was on the agenda that with the Military Museum, that I definitely wanted to work with them and hopefully with administration to make sure we could get a 25-year lease for them. So I will admit that I did have that conversation with them.
Okay.
So we have motion and support. Is there any more discussion at this time?
Mayor Pro Tem,
Yes.
the asbestos clause was not in your motion.
I can motion to amend my clause also to add that the part where it says the property contains asbestos and the said material shall not be disturbed in the event the tenant does cause an issue that creates necessity to remove the said material, the cost shall be borne solely by the tenant. I will amend my motion to add that.
I do have one other question, just before we move forward. Because of the nature of how this agreement works.
Mr. Albright, I'm sorry, Mr. Baker. Just really quick, can I get support on that amendment really quick first? Okay. I just want to make sure that the motion's in first. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mr. Baker.
Because the city does own other buildings here in Eastpointe, this is potentially setting a precedent. Are we looking to, or will we be willing to do the same kind of agreement? Especially looking at the cost that we were given by our finance director. His cost said we would fall just shy of $1 million over 25 years of taxpayer money. So if there is another group that is a private-owned entity or nonprofit, are we also willing to set this precedent that we may do this going forward? Or that we will do this going forward with other city-owned buildings?
I can respond to that, but I guess if we owned a building and a proposed organization wanted to come forward and present something to us, I wouldn't be opposed to having council ever hear a proposal like that if they think it's going to be a benefit to the residents in the city or an asset, so.
Okay. Because my questions are specifically based off of things that we talk about, especially around budgets. We talk about being financially responsible and good stewards of the city's resources. And so that's why I want to ask those questions. And then also, the public knows what this cost will be over the course of 25 years.
Does any other council have any other comments?
Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes.
I just had a point of clarification. This proposed lease agreement is dated to begin today's date. With these changes made, our office will make those changes and then present them to the Military Museum. What date do we want to use as a start date? Because the Military Museum representatives may not agree to the changes that have been discussed at tonight's table. I don't know whether they will or not, but I will make those changes and present them. So as far as the start date for the lease, that should probably be left blank because we don't actually have a contract. This is more of a proposal now to the members of the Military Museum.
Okay, so yeah, I can make that amendment to my motion to make this a proposal to the Military Museum to be presented to them by December 12th with the proposed changes.
Second that amendment.
So we have motion and support. Can you please call the roll?
Now, hold on.
Nope.
Before we, so wait, are we voting on the amendment or are we?
The whole
assuming?
thing.
Okay.
Yeah. The whole lease and the amendments that we made after this. We haven't called the roll yet. Please call the roll.
Mayor Pro Tem Lucido,
Yes.
Councilmember DeMonico,
Yes.
Councilmember Baker,
No.
Councilmember Curley.
Yes.
All right, moving on to item A of unfinished business, which is the split city-owned parcel 14-29-182-001.
Madam Mayor, I'll make the motion, but I think the folks out here and watching it on would deserve to know what we're talking about. What are we splitting? So whoever, maybe the city manager, maybe want to explain that, or somebody.
Yeah, Ms. Walton, you can give a brief overview.
I'll take it.
Oh, Mr. Blum.
The property at Kennedy Park runs, it's a single parcel that runs from Stevens to 10 Mile. The north end has the DPW complex on it, and the south end is the actual park. We're looking to split the parcel in two, and the reason being is there's been discussion of having solar panels or windmills or something like that up on the DPW end, and it is the understanding through the city engineer that it will be easier to get grant funds if it's a separate parcel and not part of the park, which is what it would be considered now when we go out for a grant. So this is setting us up for the future grant potential.
All right, thank you, Mr. Blum.
Okay, thank you. I would move to authorize administration to submit paperwork to Macomb County to record the split of parcel 14-29-182-001, commonly referred to as Kennedy Park.
I'll second.
Motion and support. Any conversation?
Sure, I have some questions.
Yes.
First, thank you. Do we have, so what grant applications would require this distinction?
We don't know the specifics. This came from Ryan Kern, the city's engineer, that having it separated would make it easier to apply for the grants, but we did not get into specifics. It just depends on when they become available and when they open up.
Okay, so we don't have a specific one?
Not today. It's preparing us for the future. And we need it split before the end of the year so that it's formally split on the next tax roll.
What's the current zoning of the whole parcel?
The south end is, the park portion is residential, the north end is industrial. So it's a dual zoned parcel.
So then, if it's already zoned, is
It's
plan to have it
zoned industrial, but it's not a separate independent parcel.
And that distinction of a parcel, we're saying,
Per our
is-
engineer, yes, that would make a difference on a grant.
So what about this Sparks grant we're about to go for?
Don't know what the criteria is on that one. Probably would help us by not having industrial tied in with the parks. But he was looking at it more from the, while we're looking into the solar panel options and some of the grants that become available.
Well, I guess that's the only questions I have. I wish, I guess I realized the memos to us are not in the agenda packet, and that probably would have been helpful too for the public to understand this a little bit better. But I don't, right now, I don't have a single piece of evidence that we even need to do this. And we are literally about to make a grant application for this property tonight if the motion goes through. So I'm frankly not sure why we even need to do this.
So we have motion and support. Is there any more discussion? All right, please call the roll.
Councilmember Curley,
Yes?
Councilmember Baker,
Yes.
Councilmember DeMonico.
No.
Councilmember Lucido.
Yes. Moving on to item B, to split city-owned parcel 14-30-426-002, which is 16600 Stevens Road. And Mr. Blum, if you could give a brief overview on this one also?
Yes, this is another one that we are looking to split for grant purposes. It is the property that the Military Museum sits on. The south end of that parcel has the tennis courts and some green space. It also has some contamination, underground contamination from the property next door. We've already lost out on one grant because of the contamination. So the idea here is that we split the parcel, make the contaminated parcel separate. There are specific brownfield grants that we can then apply for to clean up the southern parcel without impacting anything on the northern parcel where the museum sits. And even with the Military Museum and their lease, if it wasn't split, they would potentially run into the same issue because the whole parcel would be considered contaminated, even though it doesn't affect the business or the building.
Do I have a motion?
Yes. I would move that, that the administration to submit paperwork to Macomb County to record the split of parcel 14-30-426-002, commonly referred to as 16600 Stevens Road.
Second that.
We have motion and support. Is there any discussion?
Sure, I have questions again.
All right, go ahead.
My first question is, where is the parking lot in this split?
All of the parking is on the north end.
So then, all of the parking is the parcel with the Military Museum building,
Correct,
and there's no parking on the parcel for the tennis courts
correct.
or the green space. So wouldn't we, I guess, so then there's no parking for that parcel, like shouldn't, where do you park for the other parcel, I guess, if we're splitting this even?
The concept was we would do a grant as a brownfield cleanup, turn it into green space that would be basically walkable for the surrounding community. It wouldn't be designed as a park that people would drive to.
So that you don't think, well, I mean, we'd still have
They
tennis
could
courts.
They'd have, yeah, they could still use the parking at the Military Museum. It's still city-owned.
Sure. So, but we're just gonna split it all onto the other lot. I guess if we were to do something different, I think we've considered, making that a park, that area. Of course, we had that CDBG application for that. We're gonna leave that parcel with no parking. You can't park on the street on the one side even, so it would just be one side of the street you can park, I guess, there. I guess just be clear. So we'll be splitting it, and then all parking will be with the Military Museum.
And we have talked to AEW about this. They can make the change. We thought this might be a topic tonight, but they could change the boundaries to include the southern parking lot in the southern parcel.
Yeah, I think that that would make more sense because that way then that parking lot would kind of be for like the tennis courts and where the northern parking would be for the museum. And with us having the lease, like even that parking lot, if we got funding, the back parking lot, like we may be able to use funding to help replace that because then the north lot would be part of the museum.
So we could table this and send it back to AEW. They could have it for the next meeting. They were prepared to do it if we wanted.
Yeah, I think I'd propose at least, the line should be, well, there's a split in the parking lots, right? There's that full parking lot, and then there's, well, like a lane right next to the building. That would probably be part of the parcel with the military museum, and then they have the parking just to the west of the building. There's a little bit of parking there.
Right.
Uh,
So,
Help me understand, you're talking about the parking. If we split it, there's not going to be a wall there where we split it, is there? No.
No.
well, right now, there's
Well, wait a minute, let me finish. There's not going to be a wall, so wouldn't people playing tennis park any place that there's a parking spot? The same as people going to the museum, use any place that there's a parking spot? I mean, why do you want to send it back?
Well, I have the same question if we don't split the parcel at all.
Well, there was very clear about why we want to split the parcel code. There's federal grants that the museum can get and we can get to take the contamination from underneath the tennis courts.
I do have one question really quick for Mr. Blum.
Go ahead, I'm done.
Okay. So the existing shed that is actually kind of like parts of the tennis courts, right? Is that on the military museum side, or from here it looks like it still would be a part of the military museum,
The way it is split, yes.
right? So right now, like, I've always thought to myself, like, if we pulled the electricity out of the military museum and put it out separate, it would be where that shed is. So that electricity would still be on the military museum parking lot then. So we're right now, we would have to actually put the electricity inside the actual tennis courts, the way this is proposed right now. So if we ever wanted to separate the electricity out, it looks like it would actually have to be placed inside the tennis courts.
Yeah, maybe behind the
Otherwise-
practice area or something.
Right, otherwise it would be in the parking lot of
Correct.
the military museum
Right.
still, so it's still. So, I mean, that was my whole thing with actually supporting this, was, okay, we're doing this 25-year lease for the military museum. I would eventually like to have those tennis courts completely separated off of there. But I don't know if it would be possible with the way this survey is done right now, because of the fact that that shed is where I've always kind of imagined it would still be on the military museum parking lot. Does that make sense?
Madam Mayor, if I may.
Yes.
To answer Councilmember DeMonico's question, in order to receive these grants, any kind of grants for remediation, we have to have control of the property. And if it's leased out, we do not have control of the property, which is another reason why this split is important. And I would agree with splitting the parking lots where the line is in the middle, but that's just a personal thing. But we do need to have control of the property to apply for these different grants.
So, actually, I have a question really quick too from Ms. Holman. Wasn't there the possibility of some contamination underneath that south end of that parking lot anyways?
I think the contamination that they found was actually closer to the west side of the property, the southern west line where it joined up with the former factory.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I do agree that with splitting it. I just think that part of the parking lot should be split with in that shed should all be part of the tennis courts part. But we do have a motion and support, so.
Can I ask one more question
Yes.
about what Ms. Holman said? What was the reason for denial of the CDBG grant then? It was
Because of the contamination. HUD doesn't allow any of their funds to be used for any contaminated properties, so we lost the $175,000.
but not because the part of the parcel was leased out.
No,
The brownfield grants are state money, not federal, so there's different rules surrounding the different grants. The federal one, we lost out because of contamination. The state one is specific to cleaning up contamination, but we have a control issue if or the building's leased out. So it's just different grants, different rules, and the split will help us accomplish what we're trying to do.
Is this in the memo?
So I have a question really quick, I guess, for our executive, Ms. Walton, really quick. In your opinion, as the executive, would you request for us to approve it this way? Or do you think you would request having that part of the parking lot, have this readjusted?
I would recommend having it adjusted. Obviously, with the feedback from council wanting to have the parking, obviously the electricity, and the different things that were brought up tonight, I think it could, Randy, correct me if I'm wrong, still potentially be approved tonight with that direction and submitted, as long as we know where that split is and the intention from council.
Right, it would just be then a matter of getting AEW to redo the drawings, get it to us in time to get it to the county. This, again, is one that needs to be to the county to reflect the parcels by December 31st, so that they are actually separated for 2023 grant timeframes.
Okay, Madam Mayor,
Yes.
there's a lot of discussion of where the line should be, so let me withdraw my motion. And was there a second? Whoever
Mr.
second
Baker.
would have to withdraw the second. And that's fine. You know, that's how we should discuss things. So I'm going to withdraw my motion, and I would make a new motion of tabling this until we get AEW and the city manager takes a look at it.
I do have one question as we table.
I'll support that. And then you're
Okay,
gonna have your question.
no, if we bring this back at the next meeting, is that still, like, we're not gonna miss out on any time frame for anything, any grants potentially or anything of that nature? That's
No, we have to have it to the county by the end of the year. We got Christmas holidays coming up, but if we get it approved on the 20th, it can get to the county before the county year end.
Okay, thank you.
Any more discussion? We have motion and support. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Curley.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Lucido.
Yes.
Councilmember DeMonico.
Yes.
Councilmember Baker.
Yes.
Now we're moving on to reports from administration, and we're going to start this evening with our city manager report. Oh, I'm sorry. Never mind. I guess I need to do these ones. That's what everyone's here for, right? I was just. All right, item C, second reading and adoption of ordinance number 22
Would you like to take it?
1227, an ordinance text amendment to Chapter 2, Administration of the Ordinances of the City of Eastpointe.
So moved.
I'll support it.
Any discussion?
Sure, Madam Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes.
I guess I probably said some of it at last meeting, but I think this cost recovery ordinance, I think, is not the appropriate way to go about this. I think we should, a lot of the items in this agenda topic, we can address through other ordinances or things like that. Like if someone sets a false alarm, you can write a ticket. If someone puts out a bomb threat, you can write a ticket. I think it should go through the judicial system, not, this ordinance where we'd be sending out invoices to get paid for time back, that was spent on this. I think this is just, it's how how we do business right now with the police department, I'd say is like how we should do it. We shouldn't make this change, I believe.
Thank you, Councilman DeMonico. I'll comment really quick, too, that I agree with everything Councilman DeMonico said. I think that I understand where the police department's coming from, but at the same time, I think this ordinance is just a little too much. And the last thing I want is for anyone to ever have like the fear of getting a bill for calling emergency or non-emergency numbers. I know sometimes, people abuse it and things like that, but, our residents do pay taxes for those services, and we should be providing them. Any other discussion?
No,
All right.
go
ahead.
Oh, no, I was just gonna say, I believe our director did an excellent job of explaining this ordinance. Also on the news, when he was interviewed, he did a great job explaining it. It was very clear. But I guess there's no further discussion needed because basically we already see at the table now how it's gonna go, how it falls.
So we have motion and support, so please call the roll.
Councilmember Baker.
Yes.
Councilmember Curley.
Yes.
Councilmember DeMonico,
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Lucido.
No. All right, moving on to the second reading and adoption of ordinance number 22-1228, an ordinance to amend Chapter 10, Building and Building Regulations of the ordinances of the city of Eastpointe.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem, I'll motion we give second reading to and adopt ordinance 22-1228, which amends Chapter 10, Buildings and Building Regulations of the ordinances of the city of Eastpointe.
I'll second.
Motion to support, any discussion? Please call the roll.
Councilmember DeMonico,
Yes.
Councilmember Baker,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Lucido,
Yes.
Councilmember Curley.
Yes.
All right, and we are now moving on to reports from administration, and we are going to start with our city manager this evening, Ms. Walton.
All right, good evening, Mayor and Council. I'd like to start off with, I know Ms. Marajian highlighted the letters that came out in regards to the lead lines. We did send letters out in November that highlighted anyone that we have already identified that has a lead water service line. We are still in the process of auditing based on the changes of laws from 2015, 2018, and 2019 to ensure that we include all full lines and partial lines based on the construction that has happened. So by the end of the year, you will have a letter notification that does indicate if you do have a lead service line. There was a public education letter mailed out as well to every water consumer. So that was not a letter to identify your water service line. That was public education providing information to you on what lead can do to your body if it is consumed. So that was information and education that was required by Eagle and approved by Eagle to be provided. So it was not information that was put together solely by the city and submitted in error. It was actually approved by Eagle prior to being sent out as required. There are other information and resources on our website that do highlight information regarding filters, which I know Ms. Marajian also highlighted. We do still have filters available. We also have cartridges available. We've also expanded our outreach and have provided those filters at the library. So we have evening and weekend hours if that is more accessible to anyone in the community. If you have not gotten a filter yet, you're more than welcome to stop into City Hall or at the library after hours or on Saturdays to pick up a filter or cartridges. I'd also like to highlight our tree lighting ceremony is this coming Thursday at 6:30 p.m. here at City Hall. You can stop by and bring your family. We'll have Santa Claus, Mrs. Claus, reindeer, treats, candy, something to feed reindeer. So we want you to come out, kind of enjoy everyone, get to know more people in the community, and as Ms. Mary Hall Rayford said, connect with the Eastpointe family. We also have openings on boards and commissions, so I'd encourage any resident that is interested in serving the community to come out. We can have, additional questions or information on boards and commissions and what's available. We'd love to have those conversations and have you, again, join our family and serve the community. So with that, Mayor and Council, if you have any questions, I can certainly answer those.
Anyone have any questions at this time for our city manager? All right, we'll move on to our finance director, Mr. Blum.
Mayor Pro Tem and Council. We had our audit meeting at 6 o'clock today. There's a couple other audit-related items later. The only thing I have tonight is I would like to thank my staff for keeping things running smoothly throughout the year, and especially the city's controller, Danielle Palmaville, for stepping up during the audit season. And we had another smooth year, and I'm very pleased with the way things turned out. And that's all I have.
Thank you, and thank you, Danielle. Moving on to, does anyone have any questions for Mr. Blum? Moving on to our city attorney, Mr. Albright.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem Lucido, members of council. In light of tonight's closed session, I have a very short report section. Council's in receipt of our monthly status report. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? All right, we'll move on to new business, starting with A, Smart Municipal and Community Credit Contract for fiscal year 2023.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem, I'll motion we approve the municipal credit and community credit contract for fiscal year 2023 and authorize the city manager to execute the documents.
Support.
Motion and support, please call the roll.
Councilmember DeMonico,
Yes.
Councilmember Curley.
Yes.
Councilmember Baker,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Lucido.
Yes. Moving on to item B, receive and file the fiscal year 2020 audit financials.
So moved.
I'll second that.
I'll take that one.
Motion and support. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Curley,
Yes?
Councilmember DeMonico,
Yes.
Councilmember Baker,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Lucido.
Yes. Item C, adoption and resolution number 22-1950, authorizing deficit elimination plan for the capital improvement fund.
I'll move that we adopt resolution number 22-1950 to authorize the deficit elimination plan for the capital improvement fund.
Second that.
Motion and support. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Baker,
Yes.
Councilmember DeMonico,
Yes.
Councilmember Curley,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Lucido.
Yes. Item D, 9 Mile Properties reconstruction and environmental grant opportunities.
All right, Mayor Pro Tem, I move that we schedule a discussion on the 9 Mile properties for the regular city council meeting on December 20th, 2022.
I support it, other than the fact that, why don't we tell the people what we're talking about? What property?
Yeah, really
Well, so
quick.
they know.
Yeah, Mr. Curley, really quick, though, I do have one comment, too, before I give the floor to Ms. Walton to discuss that. I know you guys are putting this on here for the December 2022 meeting, but I was wondering if it would be more beneficial to add it to, you guys are doing a capital improvement meeting, I think, coming up. You guys scheduled that, I believe, at our last meeting. If it would be better to have it on that one. For one, we might have a new council person at that time present, and maybe their opinion might be, because they're going to be one working through this whole process.
I think this one had a time constraint on it, though, did it not?
Well, Ms. Walton can have the floor now, if she can answer.
Thank you. So the city owns the two parcels, which is 16129 and 16213 East 9 Mile. We brought it up for a conversation. It has been a topic in terms of the use of that property. We are currently in the process of reconstructing 9 Mile. We are entering the phase where AEW is finalizing design from Gratiot to Tuscany. Those two buildings sit in that area. We have had meetings with them and construction meetings, which has led to a conversation of not being able to finalize plans without understanding and knowing what council's decision is towards the use of that property. We have also been informed that there are environmental grants that are available that have a deadline at the end of January, and so we're hoping that council is willing to have a conversation on December 20th to make a decision on the use of that property, so that our city engineer that is putting the design together to bring to council for the Gratiot to Tuscany reconstruction is aware of the use of the building, so that he can properly prepare that design, and then we can also properly plan to put grants in that are appropriate for the designation of those buildings.
Thank you, Ms. Walton. We have motion and support. Is there any other discussion?
Sure, I've got questions. I guess I just don't know why. Well, I thought we were coming back with a January date for the capital improvement meeting, like we were saying. I know now we're saying there's grants again. I don't know, what are these grants? There's always mysterious grants that rush us into things. We just closed on the property not very long ago, so we haven't even had a single discussion at the table about what we're even doing there in terms of particular building or anything. And then I guess what is the exact scenario that we need to do this before the 9 Mile plans? Because I think we can do anything on our parcel we want, and then we can do anything on 9 Mile we want. What's the overlap that is causing us to move so quickly forward? Because that's been mentioned too, that we need to do this with 9 Mile coming up.
Ms. Walton.
Yes. I first want to address the mysterious grants. I think that's a bit improper to say or especially for an administration that works incredibly hard to find grants to support a community that does not have the funding to do certain things that we'd like to do and see improvements within the community. So I'd like to be cautious in the language that we use that way. And then again, there are environmental grants, and if there are additional questions in terms of talking to these agencies, federal and state agencies, and you'd like that provided, we can certainly do that. But I definitely don't want to use that verbiage or portray that to the community, because that would be improper and is inappropriate and not accurate, actually. And then moving forward, again, utilizing the property, we're in the design phase. We did the same phase on the opposite side, on the west end of Gratiot, where the design came to City Council for approval prior to moving forward. We're in a stage where, while we did get kicked back for the reconstruction from Beechwood to Gratiot, for reconstruction, the reconstruction process until springtime, we are also slated to start this summer reconstructing from Gratiot to Tuscany. So it is in the time frame of bringing a design forward. So we just had a construction meeting with AEW, as we do monthly, and he had the same conversation in terms of what's the plan for the building so that they can properly plan. We had a meeting when it came to, with our planners as well, in terms of owning that building and even putting a stoplight. Our police department is currently there, and what we can do in constructing 9 Mile to assist with their exit and entrance into the building when they're responding to emergencies. If we don't know what the entrance or the exit of that building is going to be, we can't properly plan for the community and the construction of that project.
Okay, so, if I could ask a follow-up?
Yes, go ahead, Councilman DeMonico.
So on the, so two things, I guess. So there's grant deadlines, and then a street light or traffic control, at least we want to integrate well, and so that's what we want to accomplish as soon as possible. That we need that done before the 9 Mile plans move forward. And so then we're saying we're constructing from Beaconsfield all the way to Tuscany all next year.
That is the plan. So the construction ran late, and obviously started late with the water main that came in late, the equipment and the delays that we had. But the plan is to start in the springtime. I believe it was a March start, that we actually have to start putting signs up and everything else to actually reconstruct that side. But then we would start obviously the process when it comes to utilities that we started on the west half. We would start that in the summertime, and hopefully we have all of the material so that we can catch up and be on time with the project next summer.
Can I just throw one thing, just to your point? Was that Beaconsfield to Tuscany, or Gratiot to Tuscany, or you said Beechwood?
I said Beechwood.
Yeah.
Yep. So we started this year with Beechwood to Gratiot. Next year, our schedule has been from Gratiot to Tuscany.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that's what I said, yeah.
And so then the grants, like, what are one of the grants?
Madam Mayor, if I may.
Yes. Ms. Holman.
Through the state, there is actually a first-time blight elimination grant of $21 million. It ends, the deadline closes January 31st. However, it is first come, first serve, and they are already awarding money for blight removal of everything from residential to industrial, including some cleanup funds. That would be a shame to miss out on that, as well as some of the things that the county, Macomb County has planned in terms of EPA grants.
Thank you, Ms. Holman. Any other discussion?
And so then we're gonna just have this whole discussion at a regular council meeting, because I think city council is interested in having this discussion, so we're not in the middle of a, multi-hour already meeting. It's gonna turn into a 5 or 6 hour meeting probably then.
That's the recommendation, is to schedule it, to add it to the next meeting, which is December 20th. If you'd like to add or schedule a special meeting in December, and hopefully that can be something we can bring more information in regards to the grant. And, obviously we have to make a decision on the property prior to discussing the grant, but if you'd like more information, we can discuss it at that time if you'd like to do it as a separate meeting in December.
And I guess, sorry.
Go ahead.
At the end of this meeting, what would be the motions we'd be looking for, I guess, so I guess we need to, we'd need to approve to put in for these grants, right? I think city council, if it's gonna be in the millions, we should be approving the submission of those grants. And then 2, we'd need to come up with where on 9 Mile, we would have the curb cuts, I guess, basically, on 2 weeks from today. Is that,
So, really quick, though, I do have one quick comment before I pass it over to Ms. Walton. I don't know if city council would have to approve the grants if they're the definitive plans that city council has already approved for them just to go out to get outdoor funding. If it's an idea that's something that city council hasn't approved, then I think a grant of that magnitude should be brought to council. But if we discuss this building and that grant is to help offset the cost of this building that we're gonna do, I do not think that it would be necessary for city council to approve the grant because we're already kind of like approving the plans for this building anyways. So how they get funding, I feel like is, they can get free, funding for it, that we
Yeah.
should take advantage.
Madam Mayor, I just have one question.
Yes,
And I think I
Councilman Curley.
probably mentioned it before this whole long discussion, to let the people know where you keep giving the address. Would you mind telling the people, Madam City Manager, what we're talking about, where it's at?
Yes, so it's on 9 Mile. It is the former Ferguson's building right next to the court and police building.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And just to clarify, I think, I don't know if you were finished making your point, Councilmember DeMonico, but I think what you had already mentioned is kind of a series of events that would have to happen that we're not asking. We just need a decision on what the building's going to actually be. Then it will be up to AEW to conceptualize that and put that into their plan. So you deciding on the building potentially on December 20th, we're not asking you to decide on curb cuts at that time. You would approve those curb cuts when it comes to AEW bringing forward the design from Gratiot to Tuscany. So all of the curb cuts or any other changes and the rest of the lanes, all of that will come with the design of from Gratiot to Tuscany at a later date. We just need a decision on the building so that they can actually plan for something and they know what will be in that lot.
assume, is that in January then? For those plans, because if a January meeting is too late to discuss the building.
So it's kind of making it, it's turning it kind of inside out. So we need a decision on the building so that AEW can finalize those plans. They can bring the plans forward for approval from council. So we're asking to not wait until January to finalize those plans if we're supposed to go into a construction season this summer for that very section of 9 Mile.
Councilman Monaco? Nothing else? Does anyone else have anything else to add?
Nope.
All right, we have motion and support. Can we please call the roll? I think we had a motion, didn't we?
Yeah.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure it was a long discussion.
Councilmember Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Curley?
Yes?
Councilmember DeMonico?
No.
Councilmember Lucido?
Yes. All right, moving on to item E, zoning ordinances, updates number 6 and number 7.
Madam Mayor, I would move to receive and file progress memos number 6 and number 7 for the zoning ordinance update.
So, second.
Okay, we have motion and support. Is there any discussion at this time? Please call the roll.
Councilmember Curley?
Yes?
Councilmember Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember DeMonico?
Yes.
Councilmember Lucido?
Yes. And now we're moving on to item F, which is adoption of resolution number 22-1951, authorizing the submission of an application for the Department of Natural Resources Spark Grant Program.
Madam Mayor, if I may?
Yes.
So when the packet was put together, one of the things that the Sparks Grant, the DNR Sparks Grant requires is a resolution from the authorizing body. Late this afternoon, we received a budget as to what would be required to put in the splash pad at Kennedy Park. So I have shared that with you in hard copy to replace, so we can update the resolution. I did want to update council that we had been given some misinformation. We are not allowed to submit 9 applications, 3 for each round. It is 1 for each round. So therefore, the administration moved ahead with the splash pads since there was overwhelming support for that at Kennedy. So that will be it was the top priority, so we'll be submitting that for round 1. The resolution that is needed, that is in your packet, right now it says up to $1 million. We would change that to read probably up to 800,000 because AEW's costs are looking at 789,515. That goes in on the deadline for that is the 19th of this month. So we are working on that and we'll get that in, and then hopefully we will see how that does and move on to, come back to council actually to discuss what should be priority number 2 for the second round.
Okay. Any questions for Ms. Holman? Can I get a motion?
And Mayor Pro Tem, I'll motion we authorize the submission of an application to the, for the Department of Natural Resources Spark Grant Program for the installation of a splash pad at Kennedy Park.
That amount be set of $1 million, which is in the proposed resolution, should reflect $800,000 as increase.
Councilman DeMonico, you okay making that adjustment?
Oh, sure.
Your motion?
Yeah. We're gonna say up to, wasn't it, like up to?
Yeah, up to 800,000.
Oh, okay. Yes, with that proposed change.
Okay.
Or with that change.
Motion, do I have support?
Support.
Motion and support, please call the roll.
Councilmember DeMonico,
Yes.
Councilmember Curley,
Yes.
Councilmember Baker,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Lucido.
Yes. Now we are moving on to payroll and bills.
All right, Mayor Pro Tem Lucido, I move that we pay the bills in the amount of $2,290,451.23.
Second that.
Motion and support, please call the roll.
Councilmember Baker,
Yes.
Councilmember DeMonico,
Yes.
Councilmember Curley,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Lucido.
Yes. So that moves us on to the next hearing of the public. So at this time, if anyone wishes to be heard, if they could please come up to the podium and please state your name and city of residence.
Yes, Wendy Richardson for the Military Museum. So I wanted to thank you guys for the lease. And I also did want to clarify something before it gets completely out of control. The meeting today, I absolutely said that there were 3 votes. At the previous meeting in November, 3 people from the council spoke in favor of the amendments in public, on the record. And I believe Mr. Baker was in attendance in that meeting. One other thing, the proposed lines for the parcel, we may need to look at something because our dumpster is there. So I don't know if that makes anything. So again, thank you, Council.
Thank you.
Good evening,
Yes.
Council, Eastpointe. I'm all for the military museum, but the museum, there's something about it that's screaming red flags to me. And when I say that, Councilman Harvey, Councilman Baker, we ain't had breakfast together many times. Is that correct? And Councilman Harvey, you was enraged one day when we had breakfast because a member of the museum called basically threatening you, correct, about your vote. Councilman Baker, I commend you for going to bat for the residents. Like I say, we could sell the museum for $1 and be done with it. But it's screaming red flags. That's it.
Thank you, sir. Hi.
Hi, my name is Yvonne Griffin, and I got
Oh,
issues.
I'm sorry. Can you just repeat your name? I didn't hear it.
Yvonne Griffin,
Thank you.
and I have issues about that museum too, because I really probably need to investigate that, look further into it, because when you said it had asbestos there, and the citizens of Eastpointe, taxpayer citizens, is gonna buy this building with asbestos and then have a lease on it for 25 years, probably nobody in this room will be here, but I don't think that's a good choice. I think something like this, I don't know how they do it, I'm not a lawyer, but something like this, and when you tell the people, yeah, okay, we got 3 votes. I've been to that museum. I haven't been in years. I've been out here 22 years. The museum don't look like it's no bigger than this room. You talking about the museum up on Gratiot? The city got to pay that kind of money? And then Curley here, Councilman Curley, he said something about the asbestos too. What you say, over $1 million or something like that? They happened at your church, and and then you writing up a proposal, anything over $5,000. Who's gonna pay for that? The city? Seriously, you got asbestos there. The ground is all messed up. Why even invest in something like that until you get it all cleaned up? I don't think the city should invest in that. I'm for the veterans. I have 2 brothers that have been to Vietnam, but I'm not for this. No, I don't think that's right. I think you should not do this.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else wish to speak at this time?
Thank you, Madam Mayor Council. Harvey Creech. I'd just like to read a couple of comments from, let's start with here. She got November 1st, 2022. Background brief. AEW has provided a summary of evaluations for the easements that need to be obtained by 9 Mile construction projects. There's easements. We got to obtain those before we can get into a project. And then it goes right in here, and it says, too, the attorney I talked to, he said, please, get the paperwork, and you can see where it's going. And right here, DD for the acquisition, it says, depth of easement required, parcel width, square feet of easement. Here it's got definite prescriptions of what the easements are. And yet, we have nothing from DTE. Nothing. And I mean, here it is, I said, property owner's rights and electric power easement. And here, as I said, the same thing about it. It says legal recording of easement. And then it says they will maintain. Somebody's right and somebody's wrong. I don't know exactly what it is, but the more paperwork I do on this, I would appreciate of getting some answers truly from the city on exactly what is going on, because this is the one I really like. It says right here, every owner, possessor, occupant, or person having charge of any land in the city shall cut or destroy or cause to be cut or destroyed all Canadian thistles, milkweed, not just weeds growing thereon. Look around your power lines, people in this city. I've been at this for a long time. They're growing everywhere. And yet we can't cut them down because there's electricity on them. By rights, I don't know what happened. I must have touched a toe or some blood, because I got a phone call. All of a sudden, they're going to come down and cut our street. Cutting our street's not clearing up this city, not cleaning it up. I've already seen some work they've done. I've talked to a lot of people in this city. I've seen the work. They'll come in, when they say they're going to clear up something, they cut right around a pole. That's it. They clean up enough to where I've got some stories and horror stories and the rest of this stuff that are just terrible, because they're only going to do what they have to do, and that's it. They've already proven it. No matter, they won't come in and clean it up. And it says in spreading or joining properties at least once a month. They got a 3-year schedule. You have to keep your yard up. You have to keep your weeds down. You have to do what you have to do to maintain. They don't have a schedule. DT only does what they have to do. And yet, there's your property. You own it.
Thank you, Mr. Creech.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening. Mary Howell Rayford. I'm glad Ms. Richardson clarified what happened, because I sat here in one of those meetings and acknowledged that 3 people on the council were in favor of establishing or renewing the lease for the 25 years. And just based on deductive reasoning, when something like that happens, I would have concluded the same thing, that a person could be relatively assured of 3 votes based on what happened openly at the council table. So I'm glad that was clarified. I'm not sure why the communications between council or city hall administration, whatever it is not reaching every resident. But the time to make your voice known and heard is before we get to the point of voting. And I think we need to pay more attention to what's going on in our city so that we can be informed and we can petition council members to hear us and vote based on what we believe to be a better use of whatever's going on in the city. I like to think I'm fairly informed, and I like to also think that I try to keep the community informed. So I'm not quite sure why there's always an after effect when something's been decided that all of a sudden people are coming forward not knowing what was going on. So whatever the communication method has been, I would love to see it improved so that we don't have this kind of conversation regarding things that affect everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard at this time? Mr. Edwards? Thank you.
All right. Name is Larry Edwards, East Side resident, Eastpointe residence, rather, on the east side. Yes, I'd just like to make some observations and what have you in regard to the 3 votes and what have you. There's reasons that I often make mention of do the right thing. It's inevitable that we do the right thing and how we're looking to the community, how we're serving, because it reflects in our character and what have you. And when it looks out of order and what have you, it's very notable and it's going to be questionable and what have you. So not only that, we're in a day and a time, if people are not aware and don't know, and that wouldn't be surprising either, the United States is in a day of judgment and what have you, and the judgment is upon them. So we have to be careful what we do now in these times and what have you, and say and how we conduct and carry ourselves. I'm glad, very proud of Miss Mariah Walton, and what have you, for being a person that makes sense out of things when being confronted and up against oppositions on how things are conducted in regard of everything and what have you. In this day and time, it's hard to find people that can make sense of anything when everything is not making sense anymore. And that's what we've gotten used to come to acceptance. But it's good to know there's some people still requiring to make it make sense and what have you, not just hoopla and being combative and just speaking out of the top of their head and opposing different situations because that's how they are and what have you, and because of maybe who it is and what have you. So we're in a time of crisis and what have you, and we're going to be held. We're in a day now and everything where these are not the days of old. You're going to be held accountable and you're going to be questioned on a lot of different things and what have you, because it's been far too long and what have you of getting away and conducting business as usual and what have you. Those days are gone. They're over. Can't handle it no more.
Thank you, Mr. Edwards. Does anyone else wish to speak at this time? Ms. Marie-Jan?
Karen Morajan. So my next 3 minutes. The lead in the water. The city needs to immediately alert all residents that once those 2 cartridges, the replacement cartridges for the filters are used, residents need to know that the city still has to provide residents with the continual cartridges because of the fact that the city has far exceeded that lead level. And that's not in the letter that we just got over the weekend. Also, there's no mention about, there's two parts to the service line. And the way I found that out was through the health department, the state health department calling me yesterday to discuss my water results. And she said, nope, you need to contact DPW. They need to come out and test and evaluate the service line because there's a part that is the city's part and the other part is the customer's part. There's a lot of residents that don't know that. The city needs to make sure residents are properly informed about this. This is a huge public safety concern. In regards to the grant for the parks, perhaps a quick visit down to Spindler and possibly looking at some additional barriers because a driver, unfortunately, for reasons no one's ever going to know, swerved from the far left lane off of 94, went airborne and slammed into a tree. He died in less than 2 minutes within impact. And it's really hard to go back down there and walk again. I was over by the playground as his vehicle went airborne. It's really haunting to walk past that site. Had he not slammed into the tree, he probably would have landed on the fence or possibly even on the trail. Continuing on with safety for the citizens, there's just, 38th District Court is so packed on a regular basis. And, it gets really tiring of listening to defendants throwing their little temper tantrums in the lobby about how unfair it is. It's like, you know what? Ignorance of the law is no excuse. You broke the law. You need to be responsible and stop wasting the taxpayers' dime. And no one really has read their
Thank you.
Miranda rights.
Thank you, Mr. Maraji. I'm sorry.
Okay. They need to prove they're indigent for a court-appointed.
So, anyone else wish to be heard at this time? Anyone else wish to be heard? With that, I'll close the hearing of the public, and we are going to move on to mayor and council reports. And we're going to start with Councilman DeMonico this evening.
Thanks, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. Let's see. Well, hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving. Great to see. I saw yesterday, front page of the Macomb Daily, we had good news. We had an Eastpointe resident and our chamber director on there talking about the lights in the commercial district up and down Gratiot, trying to get more of the businesses to take part in holiday lights. It's a little initiative they just did on their own. Glad to see that it was on the Macomb Daily's front page, top story. And then look forward to seeing everyone at the tree lighting this Thursday, 6:30 p.m. Hopefully see you at City Hall. And I think that's all I got today.
Thank you. And we'll move on to Councilman Curley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just one statement. This probably should be said 12 months out of the year, not just here during the holidays. But here it is. If you think you have more than you need, then build a better table, not a higher fence. So that's what we should be doing. We have a lot of things that more than what we need. Just build a larger table and help everybody out. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councilman Bailey.
Thank you. I wanted to address one thing. It was mentioned about what the votes were that could be assumed from the meeting where we talked about the military museum. Yes, I too was present at that meeting. I know how the conversation went at the table. Just to address that, I don't make any assumptions of a yes or a no, especially when direction is given for administration to meet with parties and to have conversation. So at that point, the objective is to get information and then make a decision. So that was the whole purpose of my comments. So for it to be asked or stated that we were present and that it was assumed from the last meeting, I mean, I guess you can make any assumption that you want to, but those were the reasons for my questions. So that's why I wanted to add that clarity. Moving forward, I also want to thank our finance department for such a smooth audit. Plant Moran, it was great. It was very easy to follow, and I appreciate just the work that everybody does to make these things come together and move smoothly, and to make sure that the business of the city still moves forward. Also, there is a coalition here in Eastpointe called the Eastpointe Community Action Coalition. And Friday, December 16th, from 5 to 7 p.m., they are having a community skating party at Great Skate. And the address for that is 29100 Hayes Road, and that's in Roseville, Michigan. And it's a free event. So it's just invited that, or asking that people come out. Something that I know they were targeting some of the kids in the middle school and the high school as the target audience, but you know, all are welcome. But that is again Friday, December 16th, 2022, from 5 to 7 at Great Skate in Roseville. And lastly, I owe one of our members out here a word of the day, and my word is commensurate. And that basically just states that your payment or reward will be proportionate to the work or the deeds done. That's all I got.
Thank you, Mr. Baker. So, first of all, I'd like to start out this evening by making one comment to one of the members that came to the hearing of the public. Just to clarify, we already actually own the Military Museum, and this is not something we're looking to purchase. We actually own that building already, because there seemed to be some confusion. We're not going forward and buying this building. Well, we actually already own it. I do want to remind everyone right now that we are short on a lot of boards and commissions, like the city manager mentioned earlier. So if you have any interest at all in donating a little bit of time to the city to really help improve and make the city a better place, I mean, please come down, fill out an application. They're a lot of fun. I mean, sometimes they're fun. Sometimes they're a lot of work too. So, you know, if you don't mind putting a little bit of time and effort in, though, they really do. They benefit our city a lot. We, as a council, I know, always appreciate all of our board and commission members, along with administration, because they help us out, they help administration out. So it really is, it's really is a great opportunity to give back to your community. I would like to also just really quick remind everyone about the tree lighting that was said a couple times today. Hopefully the weather holds out and it's not too cold, and that we don't have any rain. That's the most important. And that all the kids come out and they're able to have a good time for this free family event in the city. And that's all I have, so I will have a motion to move into closed session.
So moved.
A second.
Well, we should clarify.
Why we're
Oh, yeah, that's right. So a motion to go into closed session for attorney-client privilege communication, Rayford ETAL versus the City of Eastpointe pursuant to MCL 15-268.
Second that.
Motion and support, please call the roll.
Councilmember Curley. Councilmember Baker.
Yes.
Councilmember DeMonico.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Lucido.
Yes. We are back from closed session at 9:01 PM. Can I get a motion?
Madam Mayor Pro Tem, I'll motion we adopt the recommendation of council.
Second.
Motion and support, please call the roll.
Councilmember DeMonico,
Yes.
Councilmember Baker,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Lucido,
Yes.
Councilmember Curley.
Motion for adjournment.
Support.
Please call the roll.
Councilmember Curley, Councilmember Baker,
Yes.
Councilmember DeMonico,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Lucido.
Yes. Meeting adjourned at 9:01 PM. Good night, everyone.